There's turmoil and violence in Pakistan ahead of the SCO summit, a summit that will be attended by Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. The SCO summit will be attended by Foreign Minister Jaishankar. Given the state of India-Pakistan relations, the decision by the Modi government to send Mr. Jaishankar is surprising. The relationship has been in a stage of cold storage, and Pakistan has taken a position that it will not respond to India bilaterally till Article 370 is brought back. That, of course, is not happening. In the meantime, there's turmoil on the streets of Pakistan. Imran Khan's supporters are out on the street literally every day. Now, one of the Imran Khan party supporters, in fact, a senior colleague in the PTI, has in fact gone on Pakistan television and asked whether this is the face that Pakistan wants to show India when Foreign Minister Jaishankar comes visiting. Not just that, this particular leader has also said that Mr. Jaishankar should come and address the PTI protests. That's not about to happen. Jaishankar says he's just being a good member of the SCO. Remember, Bilawal Bhutto, who was then Pakistan foreign minister, came for the SCO summit when India hosted it, and these summits are rotational. But there's also going to be the presence of China and Russia. The SCO summit is one where some diplomats believe that India should walk out. What is India doing at a forum which is dominated by China and Russia? But given that this summit is taking place in Pakistan at a time when there is both political turmoil and security turmoil on the streets of Pakistan, how should we look at it? How should we understand the decision by the Modi government to send a representation as high profile as that of the Indian foreign minister? Let me introduce our guests on the program today as we look ahead at the summit and what we might expect from it. Veteran diplomat, Ambassador Dr. Mohan Kumar is joining us. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by military veteran General Raj Shukla. Always a pleasure to have you back with us. Welcome to the program. And senior Pakistani journalist Muniza Jahangir should be with us in the course of the program as well. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Dr. Kumar, I'd like to start with you. Were you surprised that the government decided to be represented by Foreign Minister Jaishankar, or was India simply being consistent with the fact that Pakistan had sent its foreign minister for the SCO summit when it was held in India? And as Jaishankar himself said, and we'll play out that clip in a moment, he's simply being a good member of the SCO. Or does it tell you that this is some sort of thawing? There's a kind of back channel that's alive. Jammu and Kashmir elections have just concluded. They've concluded successfully, peacefully even. We can't ignore that development as well. What do you make of it?
So thank you very much for having me. I think it's fair to say that this cannot be considered business as usual. So there is some movement. I hesitate calling it, a shift in policy, a recalibration, or whatever you like. But I think for someone like Foreign Minister Jaishankar to go there at this point of time, there are a variety of reasons, and if you allow me, I will be quite happy to list out those. But this is certainly not the same thing continuing. That's the first point I want to make. The second, of course, is I think you've got Russia, China, and others who are participating. True, Xi Jinping is not going, Putin is not going, Prime Minister Modi is not going. So I think sending Dr. Jaishankar is perhaps the right thing to do. And you expect Jaishankar, when he was asked in a press conference, to say that I'm not going for a bilateral meeting. For the simple reason, I think he was being absolutely honest, because we haven't reached that stage. This is really the very, very, very beginning of what you might call a long journey ahead of us in India, Pakistan. I'll just make one more point before you turn to your other guests. There's also a larger issue of a multipolar world that India is striving and others are striving. I think India seeks a multipolar world, but we want to be part of groupings which are non-Western to do that. But China and Russia don't share that view. They actually want BRICS, SCO, and everything else to be anti-Western. And I think India has to play a difficult role, especially in BRICS. But I think even in SCO, we will have to make sure that, listen, it doesn't make sense for these groupings to be completely non-Western, because then at some point India will have to distance itself from it. We've got so much now going with the Western countries. I don't think we can afford to be part of a group which keeps consistently bashing the US and Europe. So I think those are the issues at stake, frankly.
Uh, I want to play out Jaishankar's remarks before I come to General Shukla, but I just want to pick up briefly on your last point. Many diplomats that I have spoken to, both on and off the record, believe that the SCO adds no value to India's strategic interests. Do you agree with that? Or do you believe that a certain degree of engagement with China, and this is a forum dominated by the Chinese and the Russians, is precisely necessary because of the very complex relationship India and China have?
I think the latter, Barkha. I
Yeah.
definitely think. Also, that's the other point. Now that you mention it, there's something happening between India and China as well, and we don't. That's definitely a thought, without a doubt. I can't say the same for India, Pakistan, but India and China. There are enough indications on both sides. Jaishankar is saying 70% of the issue has been resolved. He went back a little on it. The Chinese are putting out even more strong statements. Global Times, for God's sake, says both India and China are major powers. I have been reading Global Times for amusement for the last 5 years or so. They've never called India a major power. So something is on. Now, this doesn't mean the Chinese will readily give in, and that we will have a solution to the border issue. But who knows if there can be a disengagement. So I think he's also going to talk to people from China, Russia, and other countries. Either way, the easiest thing, and nobody would have raised an eyebrow, you wouldn't have had this program if nobody had gone from India. That's all I'm saying. You wouldn't have been surprised.
I can tell you my own, as somebody who's covered India, Pakistan for years, I wasn't planning to even apply for a media visa till I discovered that Jaishankar was going, and it's still not clear that we'll get those visas. We're waiting to see what happens. But obviously, it's raised the profile, despite the fact that everybody understands it's not a bilateral summit. And just before I come to General Shukla, I want to play out what Foreign Minister Jaishankar said when asked how his participation in this summit should be seen. Take a look.
Normally, Prime Minister goes to the high-level meeting, the heads of state. And one of us, it changes. Usually one of the ministers goes for the heads of government meeting. So that's in line with the tradition. It so happens that the meeting is taking place in Pakistan because, like us, they are a relatively recent member. So your question, I think, as I understood it, was, am I planning for it? Of course I'm planning for it. I mean, in my business, you plan for everything which you're going to do and for a lot of things which you're not going to do. And which could happen also. I mean, you plan for that as well. Expect there would be a lot of media interest because the very nature of the relationship is such. And I think we'll deal with it. But I do want to say it will be for a multilateral event. I mean, I'm not going there to discuss India-Pakistan relations. I'm going there to be a good member of the SCO, but since I'm a courteous and civil person, I will behave myself accordingly.
General Shukla, that is a very interesting remark there. I also see senior journalist Munize Jahangir joining us. Welcome to the program, Munize. General Shukla, Jaishankar there in those comments says very clearly that he's not going for a bilateral meeting, but at the same time, with a twinkle in his eyes, he says, I plan for everything. India, Pakistan has been full of so many surprises, good, bad, and ugly, that there is enhanced interest. Jaishankar didn't have to go. As Dr. Kumar just said, nobody could have, India could have chosen to send nobody or to send a junior ranking officer. It has chosen to send the foreign minister, a foreign minister who has heft, clout, and influence, not just any foreign minister. What do you make of these developments?
Before I come to Mr. Jaishankar, I'd just like to make one short comment on what Ambassador Kumar said about Global Times. If Global Times starts calling India a major power, it's time to be even more vigilant and cautious. If we start calling a major power. But on this other piece, behind Mr. Jaishankar's criticism, I think also lies a serious message. serious message is that Mr. Jaishankar is traveling to Pakistan to not to strengthen relations with Pakistan, but that SCO is sufficiently important for India for Mr. Jaishankar to travel to Islamabad. And why I make this point is that the global center of, or the center of gravity of international and relations and diplomacy does seem to be shifting to non-West platforms. So BRICS, SCO, G20, I think they should be leveraged. And look at the SCO. I mean, it's 80% of the Eurasian landmass, I'm told, 42% population, 32% GDP. So why should we travel to these forums and make the best of it? Also, there is a serious calibration that India needs to do between its aspirations for regional cooperation and its national security interests, which is its stance on terror and so on and so forth. So very definite messages are being sent. And I think there is also firm diplomatic signaling that terror is not a legitimate tool in the quiver of your statecraft. That's been obvious. We are emphasizing it. May I also say that our grand strategy is changing in the sense that Pakistan, which was pretty central to our grand strategy for a long while, now we are saying that if we are not going to settle these basic issues, there is a larger world beyond Pakistan, many multilaterals and minilaterals. India is the geopolitical toast of the world. So we make the best of these forums to advance our interests. So I think there is a complex signaling there. This one point that Ambassador Kumar made about the larger geopolitics, we also need to take note of that. For example, I think it was in the 2022 summit that China began talking of the Global Security Initiative in SCO, which is what the GSI is saying: Chinese wisdom, Chinese solutions, strengthening, challenging US alliance structures. So all this is happening. If you see what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East, the challenge to Chinese American hegemony is there. In fact, in my view, American supremacy still exists. American hegemony is ended. So there are a complex set of factors, I think, which are driving Mr. Jaishankar's visit to Islamabad, and many of them pretty wise and sound in my view.
So that's very interesting. Both of you seem to be suggesting that the decision to participate, while it does not indicate a word as big as a Thor, it indicates some sort of recalibration, but it has also much more to do with other relationships within the SCO. The need to engage in multilateral forums, what's happening between India and China, the declining I won't use a word stronger than that, but the declining American hegemony. I want to bring in Munize Jahangir at this point. Munize, Jaishankar is coming to Pakistan at a time when there is a lot of political turmoil within Pakistan in terms of Imran Khan supporters taking to the streets. We've also seen a major attack take place in Balochistan just today. 20 miners have been killed. Before that, we saw 2 Chinese engineers who were killed in Karachi. So Pakistan has a lot of its own things to handle. And my sense is that perhaps just like Pakistan is no longer central, as both General Shukla and Ambassador Kumar said, to India's grand strategy. Perhaps India is not central to Pakistan's grand strategy as well, because Pakistan has too much of its own going on. How is this visit, the decision that Jaishankar is coming at all, being seen there?
Barkha, for having us. Thank you so much for having me. I was listening to both of your guests, and it may be correct that Pakistan is no longer central to India's issues and and India's outlook on the region. And India may not be central to Pakistan's outlook, but I certainly do believe that there is a huge people-to-people contact and huge people-to-people sentiment between the two countries. Which other country, I was thinking about it. If there's a Chinese foreign minister coming in, there wouldn't be this flurry of phone calls between India and Pakistan, between journalists, everybody wanting to get a visa, everybody wanting to go, and then it's the only two countries which the journalists cross over with bags full of goodies and return back with bags full of goodies. I mean, there is a genuine people, not just people to people contacts. There is a historical ties that you cannot break, that you cannot deny. This is part of our history, and I think that is the underlying I really do believe that is the underlying importance of this relationship, that it goes beyond just state to state relationship. It's also a very deep people to people contact, whether it's divided families in Kashmir or in Punjab, or whether it's fishermen on either side, or whether it's culture, it's sports, whether it's the language, the food. So I think that there is an expectation, at least from the Pakistan side, that there would be perhaps a resumption of diplomatic ties, or at least we will move closer towards that, because it's ridiculous that all of the regions in the world are so interconnected, but here in Pakistan, the between India and Pakistan, the borders are so hard drawn. What for? Certainly, that cannot be the future. So I think there is also a realization within the government at the moment, the Sharif government, that they would want to have resumption of diplomatic ties. And if you look at
That is a
when,
very interesting thing. Can I ask you a question about that? You see,
yes,
Pakistan has a stated position on the abrogation of Kashmir's special, Jammu and Kashmir's special status. And that was not the Sharif government, that was a different government. But Pakistan will need some way to walk back from that position, or perhaps just let it be relegated to history. How would it handle that stated position that the Pakistani state took?
you see, that stated position was given by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari when he was foreign minister. He heads his own political party, which is the Pakistan People's Party. That was certainly not the position of the PMLN at that time. They were in a coalition at the time. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was the foreign minister, and he has his own views. If you look at the Sharifs, Nawaz Sharif, when Prime Minister Modi took oath, gave a very generous, extended a very generous greeting to Prime Minister Modi over Twitter, which was followed by a curt response. And then we saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also respond. So I think that there is a feeling that the Indians do not want to move forward towards resumption of diplomatic ties. And that is why Pakistan has moved back also. But there is certainly an expectation that there would be a thaw. And there has been a realization within the establishment, as in the military, that if we do not do trade with India, that we will lose. And this was something that the politicians were really pushing for. Let's do trade with India. And for many, many years, the military resisted, in fact, called Nawaz Sharif and Benazir both a national security threat just by just for wanting to do that. So there has been a realization, not just with the political, and the political class has always wanted to have good ties with India, whether that's the Jamaat-e-Islami right wing, or Imran Khan, or Benazir, or Nawaz Sharif, but also within the military establishment.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective, and I'm sure both Ambassador Kumar and General Shukla would want to respond to it. But Munize, I don't know if this was seen as funny when it played out on Pakistan's TV channels, or whether it was taken seriously. But there's actually a senior colleague of Imran Khan, a party leader of the PTI, who basically argued, I saw this on Geo TV, who basically argued two things. He said, and we'll just play out that clip. He said, is this the face we want to show of Pakistan to India? India तो जमहूरियत की बात करते हैं, हमें भी अपनी जमहूरियत दिखानी चाहिए. We should also put the best face of our own democracy when the Indians come visiting. And then he ended that comment by saying, Mr. Jaishankar should come and address our protests on the streets. Now, of course, Mr. Jaishankar is going to do no such thing. But I just want to play out that clip, and I'm very curious to know your response to it. Take a look. Let's play that clip, please.
और दूसरी बात यह कि इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो आ रहा है वो तो बहुत
Go full
जमहूरियत
frame.
होने का दावा करते हैं. तो जो जमहूरियत का दावा करते हैं, क्या उसको आप ये दिखा रहे हैं कि आपने एहतजाज को कैंसिल कर दिया? आपने 10,000 कंटेनर जो हैं, कंटेनरों के पहाड़ इस्लामाबाद में खड़े किए हुए हैं. अगर आप उसको वो दिखाना चाह रहे हैं तो ये फिर आपके जमहूरियत की शक्ल है. हम तो उनको एक पुरअमन एहतजाज कर रहे हैं और हम अपना इन्हीं हक इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. और हम जयशंकर साहब को भी दावत देंगे, वो भी आए हमारे एहतजाज में शिरकत करें, हमसे हमारे लोगों को एड्रेस करें, और देखेंगे पाकिस्तान की जमहूरियत कितनी मजबूत जमहूरियत है, जहाँ पे हर किसी को एहतजाज का हक है. और दूसरी बात यह कि इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर जो आ रहा है वो तो बहुत बड़ी जमहूरियत होने का दावा करते हैं. तो जो जमहूरियत का दावा करते हैं, क्या उसको आप ये दिखा रहे हैं कि आपने एहतजाज को कैंसिल कर दिया? आपने 10,000 कंटेनर जो हैं, कंटेनरों के पहाड़ इस्लामाबाद में खड़े किए हुए हैं. अगर आप उसको वो दिखाना चाह रहे हैं तो ये फिर आपके जमहूरियत की शक्ल है. हम तो उनको एक पुरअमन एहतजाज कर रहे हैं और हम अपना इन्हीं हक इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. और हम जयशंकर साहब को भी दावत देंगे, वो भी आए हमारे एहतजाज में शिरकत करें, हमसे हमारे लोगों को एड्रेस करें, और देखेंगे पाकिस्तान की जमहूरियत कितनी मजबूत जमहूरियत है, जहाँ पे हर किसी को एहतजाज का हक है.
Okay, I want to come in there. Can we come out of this, please? Yes. Munize, obviously this is not going to happen, but the fact that it was said at all, it is so ironic. It is so ironic how, when it comes to India, Imran Khan, once seen as the golden boy of the military, today his colleagues are saying on Pakistan's own channels that India's Jaishankar should come and address our protests. And, he's not being called a traitor for suggesting this, or is he being called a traitor for suggesting this? I mean, how did this clip play out in Pakistan?
Well, this statement was made by the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa spokesperson, Barrister Saif, who's seen to be close to to Imran Khan's government, and this clip and this statement of his was severely criticized by the government, not just by the PMLN, but also by the Pakistan People's Party led by Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. And it was also criticized by his own political party, the PTI. So he did face some internal criticism from his party. It was obviously a silly statement to make, and he was reprimanded for it. And I think that the government at the time used it, saying that the PTI is actually anti-state, and because it is making these kind of statements, this demonstrates to you that they are anti-state. So it was criticized by everybody, including the PTI.
Okay, and that would be as expected. I mean, it is quite bizarre, but it was just one of those moments that I thought we should reflect. Let's have reactions to what Munize has said about the Pakistan military ambassador Kumar coming around to the view that trade should be resumed, about the fact that the Nawaz Sharif, well, I should call it the Shehbaz Sharif government, because Nawaz Sharif is not the prime minister, but that the PMLN has always sort of had a somewhat different position on India, and Nawaz Sharif has sometimes actually politically got grief for it. And therefore the expectation now that maybe something, not a resumption maybe of the composite dialogue, but something could pick up, it could start with trade. Do you think that could happen, or do you think that's out of the question at the moment?
Easiest things when look at
Sorry,
the
sir,
whole,
just start again.
So when you look at the whole spectrum of measures that India can do, if it believes that there should be an easing of tension between India and Pakistan, one is to exchange high commissioners. I mean, it's ridiculous, really. If you can make do with the DCM, why not put a high commissioner? So I think that is one that you would do. The second is obviously trade. But my point is something else. The current government's position is that as long as there is sponsoring of cross-border terrorism, we cannot do anything. We can't talk. So my question is, somewhere we have to decide, when was the last time there was sponsoring of cross-border terrorism from Pakistan? And I wouldn't know this, but the government should know this. Number two, is the Pakistani military, which is so keen to, not so keen, but okay, reportedly keen to have a resumption of trade ties, can you then give at least a fresh commitment that, listen, we will do our utmost from now on not to do that? I think that can only be done behind closed doors. It can't be done like this in a public forum, obviously. But to me, that is important, because otherwise we will continue to talk in circles. So that's my limited view. On on Munize, if I can call you Munize, on Munize's point about Pakistan and India's people-to-people ties, don't take this the wrong way. All three of you are illustrious people from north of Vindhyas, but I belong to Chennai, and south of India is quite blissful about Pakistan, frankly. I mean, they really, don't take this the wrong way, but they really, really don't care.
It is a very North Indian, the schizophrenic relationship between India and Pakistan is very much a product of North Indian subculture. I don't think there would be any.
And some of us regret Delhi being the capital, by the way. You should know that as well. Anyway,
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry. Did you want to add something to that?
No, I just wanted to say we have to get clarity now. For that, you need to sit and talk. If that means having back channel talks, then so be it. Because you see, the two positions taken by the respective governments, our government says, without stopping the sponsoring of cross-border terrorism, there can be no dialogue and so on. And Pakistan says, Article 370, other things should be done. We've had an extremely successful election in Jammu and Kashmir. I don't know if that changes anything, but I think you should sit and talk about these things, back channel, before we can start at least doing those. Those two things are the easiest things to do. Exchange of high commissioners and trade, where I think Pakistan has never given us MFN, by the way. We gave MFN for years and years to Pakistan. I was in the WTO, and then finally we decided it's not working in our favor, so we started imposing 300% duties. And if you go to Punjab, very frankly, they will complain that it's much better to get cement from Pakistan than from my part of the world. You know, they're getting now cement from Madurai and Chennai, which actually means the freight and other things makes it more expensive. So you have those issues, but this needs talking, because both governments have taken positions, used strong words.
Isn't it your sense, sir, with all your experience in diplomacy, that Jaishankar's going, I don't know, I could be wrong, Jaishankar's going would not have happened without some back channeling. Some conversation has happened in some back channel.
I began the program by saying that, I mean, you are absolutely right. Jaishankar is no ordinary minister in this government. We all know that. They could have easily sent an MOS. They could have sent a secretary. You're right. So I think something is afoot, but I wouldn't. I think the danger is in over-interpreting it, because it can just as easily backfire. You know how Indo-Pak relations are. For example, I'm very curious to see Shanghai Cooperation Organization actually has counterterrorism as one of its planks. Actually, it's a plank. So if Jaishankar makes a speech there, which I suppose he will come down very hard on terrorism. He may not name 100%. Pakistan. He may name Pakistan.
Well, sir, I think, General Shukla, a lot of these things play to expectations. There can be surprises. But for example, if we rewind to the SCO in India, Munize was here in India reporting it. Both countries expressed their stated positions, just as they did recently at the United Nations. The important conversations, as Dr. Kumar says, Ambassador Dr. Kumar says, are not the ones taking place in public, but if any, are taking place in private. And you cannot escape the fact that Jammu and Kashmir has just concluded a largely peaceful election. This could have a lot to do with our security grid and our improved sort of intelligence. But given how inflamed the region of Jammu was, the Pir Panjal was just 2 months ago, one couldn't help but thinking that if there is a tap, as we know there is, it's for the moment been turned off. For the moment, I'm using my words carefully. The election was successful, peaceful, participative. You know, what do you make of the expectations that Munize Jahangir listed in Pakistan, or certainly in the PMLN?
Yeah, before I come to Munize's expectations, Ambassador Kumar talked of this Vindhyas divide in looking at Pakistan. May I remind him that two of our sharpest strategic minds and brilliant minds on Pakistan were General Krishnaswamy Sundarji and General Padmanabhan from central Chennai.
Ironies, many ironies. That's interesting.
But on the most
but
serious
I take his point that, you know, sometimes it's said that this is a Punjabi fixation, right? Like that, like this is a lot of times in India you hear that only you Punjabis are obsessed with Pakistan.
I'm contesting that. I'm telling you, our sharpest strategic minds have been Tamilian Brahmins from the south, and they've led the Indian army very illustriously. And anyway, see, on the most serious issue, the point of Munize is this people argument is what? Look at our history and our memories. To the accompaniment of this people to people thing, what was happening in India just a few years back, under this epithet of raucous democracy, bombs were exploding in our streets every week. We have taken note of that change. They have stopped exploding now. So that is a big issue, this business of talking in forked tongues. I don't blame her for this, but Pakistan has been talking in forked tongues. Why today? General Bajwa spoke of geoeconomics 2 years back. What happened? Barkha, I've been on your show just last month. What were we discussing? The Mayhem in Jammu. Where has the terror tap been switched off? It has not. So if there is any seriousness to this, to switching off the terror tap, of course, Indo-Pak relations will be back on a firm footing. And if these things are happening, these pull-aside meetings and all these back channel, who can be against it? But the central principle, I think, is very sound, that Indo-Pak relations cannot progress unless the terror tap is not turned off temporarily or so, but is decisively turned off. And if now, I heard Munize right, if Pakistan is walking back on its position on Article 370, good news. These are the kind of steps we need, but meaningful diplomatic stuff. Peoples to peoples contact with bombs exploding every week just cannot happen. It is not a reality. So if we are serious about people to people, the terror tap has to be switched off. It will not work. These conversations in forked tongues will simply not work.
Munize, one of the most popular Netflix series, fiercely debated, criticized, liked, has been on the hijacking of IC-814. It was the hijacking that led to the release of Masood Azhar. In all the occasions that I've had to meet with Nawaz Sharif, sometimes when he's been prime minister, sometimes when he's been in opposition, I always ask him, and of course there's no sort of clear answer. But I do remember once interviewing Musharraf, who said on record that the Lashkar-e-Taiba is we don't look at the Lashkar as a terror organization. Now, the reason I'm bringing up these historical examples is that India and Pakistan seem to be stuck in this kind of loop. And the loop is there are periods of, there are windows that seem to open for an opportunity. And then, India, scarred by Lashkar and Jaish, will return to the question of Lashkar and Jaish. Pakistan will return to its stated position on the Kashmir Valley. That is certainly not India's position. We've seen these differences play out just now, just 1 month ago at the United Nations. So we know what those positions are. My question to you is, when General Bajwa was the Pakistan military chief, there was a sense that there was some kind of shift and that he got into trouble for that. Under this Pakistan military, do you sense any kind of strategic shift? Or is there now a change in the Pakistan military's way of thinking of what should happen next?
Well, I don't think that the military generals are reprimanded for any of their thinking. If that was the case, it would be very different Pakistan. But at the same time, I do believe that there was a realization. Basically, it came out of a certain necessity that money was drying up for the military of Pakistan. Because if you look at the way Pakistan is structured now after the 18th Amendment, a lot of the chunk of the federal pool, the budget, goes to the provinces. And the military then just has this small pool, the federal pool, for which they take their defense budget. And that has shrunk. So they want to engage in trade with India because they feel that there is a need for that simply because it means more dollars. Now, I do not hold a brief for the military or for the government for that matter. But I can tell you that I can, sometimes the military says something else and does something else with our politicians. So we do not know exactly where they stand. But with the politicians, certainly it's very clear that they do want peaceful relations with all their neighbors, also Afghanistan. And I think, at least for the two governing parties now, the Pakistan People's Party and the PML, and also the PTI, they have expressly said this, not just in statements, but it's also part of their manifestos. Now, when you talk about, they can, people to people contact is not so important. My question to you is that the SCO really is envisioning a certain region moving forward together, prospering together. So now people are not looking at just their countries prospering, the way the world is now working and policy making is working. They're talking about regions progressing, whether that be a pandemic, whether that be trade, whether that be economics. So how long can we shut our gates tight and say that, keep out and we will continue to prosper without looking at each other? It's almost immature, it's childish way of doing diplomacy, and that's, I think, how people in Pakistan look at it. And certainly the Sharif government, perhaps you will not get a more friendlier government towards India other than the Sharif government. I do know that the Pakistan People's Party has a stance on Kashmir, and all the governments of India, of Pakistan, will have a stance on Kashmir. They will go by that stance. but perhaps the Pakistan People's Party pushes it more than the other government. But they all do want normalization of ties. I think that's one thing that they all agree on.
Let me bring in General Shukla. You wanted to respond. I think it's a complicated, that's why I call it schizophrenic. I do take Muniz's point that if a Chinese foreign minister was coming to India, it would not evoke the same sort of media interest than a Pakistan foreign minister coming, and the vice versa is true. And that has something to do with the dichotomous nature of the relationship. You have certain things in common. You have a shared, if scarred, history. You have language, you have food, you have music, you have those cultural connections. But equally, I know that Pakistan, the public opinion also in India for Pakistan is likewise dichotomous. A bomb goes off and people feel very differently, and when it's peaceful, people feel very differently, and everybody has friends across the borders with whom they may disagree fundamentally on politics, and that's fine. So to that extent, I think Munizi has a valid point. But structurally, when you go to the SCO, none of the countries other than Russia are countries with whom India, like the Chinese, okay, something is thawing, but it's not the greatest relationship. Pakistan is seen to be certainly closer to China than to anybody else. General Shukla. So do go ahead. When Munizi says you won't find a more pro-India party than the PMLN, what would you say?
But see, that is the exact problem. Firstly, I never said that the people-to-people relationship is not important. I was saying that the people-to-people relationship will never play out unless the larger issues between India and Pakistan are solved.
Yeah, it won't lead to any structural change, and that I agree with. Yeah.
Now, I don't wish to be patronizing, but what is the central problem of Pakistan? The central problem is this, that unless its CMR relationship settles down, which means that they are orderly political transitions, into which the military cannot interfere or does not interfere, this other stuff will not work out, because the establishment will continue to do what it wishes to. And you don't have to go too far back, Barkha. Just a month ago, what was happening in the entire Southeast Punjab? It is evidence that the terror tap has not been shut down. And who's driving this terror tap?
I wasn't saying it's been shut down. So I want to clarify. Sorry, just a brief clarification.
Just because change of heart. And
I wasn't saying either. I was making an observation on tactics. Just a question to you. And
so I'm going to
that the election, because I've covered many elections that have been horribly in the shadow of terror attacks. There was no boycott call. There was no militant activity. There was no terror activity during the elections by and large. I wasn't saying change of heart. I wasn't saying Lashkar and Jaish are going to go away. I wasn't saying that. I was simply wondering what's up. Sorry, yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So but my sense of what is up. So the same people who go to these, forums, the seminar platforms and talk geoeconomics, descend from the platforms and do this. Jab tak ye badli nahi hoga, and till that doesn't happen, it is not too relevant what the PMNL thinks. It is what the establishment thinks. If there is a change in the heart of the establishment, who's against people-to-people contacts? Anyway, that is one part of it. But the other serious issue is that India also has to see. And here, I would love to have Ambassador Kumar's views. See, in the region, if SARC is not working, if BIMSTEC is not vibrant enough, what is that unifying metaphor in South Asia? Now, India is a leader in South Asia. It needs to see how the South Asian region prospers. And there, one aspirational dream is to become like ASEAN, but that's not happening. But we do need to find a regional metaphor. We can't forever remain stuck in SARC not working, BIMSTEC not working. So that is a challenge before us. Just as the challenge before Pakistan is that unless it sets its CMR relationship right, in which the political principle has overriding control of the military, this, in my view, is not going to fade away. This terror challenge, which is hidden in their larger state. So both the countries have this.
Yes, I think the last point is
just one quick point. Our competitors, or let me name them, China, would be delighted if India is stuck in this South Asian box. We have to break out of it. We have to break out of it to engage with the wider world, IMEC and what's in the Far East. And that is almost a necessity now for us because, we are growing. So we are now caught in this complex web. What is that metaphor in South Asia? How do we break out of the box? So,
Yeah.
And therefore our diplomacy is also becoming pretty complex. But I would just like to make one point that, there is a view that unless our periphery is sorted out, we must not have deeper ambitions. I'm saying you have to have deeper ambitions. The periphery will never be sorted out. You will have to rise amongst all these crises.
Okay, I want to pick up before I give Dr. Kumar, Ambassador Kumar, the last word, a quick response from Munize on that last point that General Shukla made about what he called the CMR, the civilian-military relationship. I think it's an important point, Munize, because there is a sense that the parties are not autonomous of the military. That's no secret. Otherwise, Imran Khan's supporters would not be out on the streets at this point. And given that, what really matters is the Pakistan military. Now, every time I say this to friends in Pakistan, they feel very angry. They accuse us of having invested in a Pervez Musharraf, of having romanticized him, instead of investing in civilians. But the cynicism in India is the civilians don't have the power. What would you say to that?
Well, the thing is, Barkha, that there has been a very clear struggle in Pakistan for democracy. Everybody is there to see it. Now, who you choose to side with is a different matter. Whether you want to weaken democracy, being the largest democracy in the world, or whether you want to strengthen another democracy. And what do you
I can barely hear you. I can barely hear you. Come closer to your device. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. I think the
Yeah.
question is that being the largest democracy, what do you want to invest in, and where do you see your security lies? Does it lie with the military, where you had an experience, you yourself say they say something else, but they do something else, or whether do you want to invest in something that looks like you, a democracy, and has accountability? So that's a choice that you will have to make on your own, and you will have to come to that conclusion on your own. If you do feel that it's in fact the military, and in the past, I'm sorry to say, we've seen the Indians invest in military dictatorships, as you rightly pointed out. They were very happy to host General Pervez Musharraf. All of Bollywood was trotted out to meet him, and that sent a signal to Pakistan's civil society and politicians here that we are happy to tango with a general, but not with a democratic dispensation. Why is that? If you have already had a bad experience, and you already believe that democracy for you is the right way forward, and that is the only system that can bring about transparency and accountability, then why do you have a different set of principles for the other country? So I think that democracies in countries do not flourish on their own. There are, external factors that support them or undermine them. And in Pakistan,
Okay, you have terrible audio, but I got
struggle
the
for
gist.
democracy.
Munize, hang on. Your network isn't working, but I heard the gist of what you said. That why did India invest? Can we mute? Munize, we're gonna have to mute you because we cannot hear you at all. There's just a lot of noise at your end. But the operative part of what you said is on the screen. Why did India invest in military dictators? Democracies don't grow stronger on their own. It sends a message to other civilian leaders in Pakistan. The way India believed that Musharraf was the best bet when it came to Pakistan. That's the gist of what
And
Munize was
if you
saying. Yeah.
And if you can hear me clearly, I wanted to say that's for you to decide whether you want to engage with somebody who looks like you, a democracy which has accountability and transparency, or with a dictatorship where you've had a bad experience before.
Got it. Your audio is terrible, but got the point that you were trying to make. Dr. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, do go ahead with your concluding thoughts.
General Shukla wants it for a minute.
Oh,
General
okay,
Shukla
General
wanted
Shukla.
for a minute.
General Shukla, you want to take a minute? Yeah, General Shukla.
Point, we have tried General Musharraf out. Prime Minister Modi made that stopover in Lahore. He tried Mr. Nawaz Sharif out. We have no problem. Jo bhi kaam aa jaye. But both the sides, so therefore it's an internal issue. We have to wait for your CMR relationship to settle down. Till that does not happen, I don't wish to whine about the past. I want to be optimistic about the future, but I don't see this thing sorting itself. Pakistan has to internally sort out its CMR relationship.
Pakistan has to internally sort out its relationships to move forward with India. I do have to conclude. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, last word to you. And my producer is urging me to also ask about cricket, which I haven't been following that closely. But there is a decision that India has to make soon on touring Pakistan when it comes to cricket. I don't see those details on our screen, but I'm sure we'll have them soon. Do go ahead and give the last word. Ambassador Kumar.
So I think the easy one first. I think on cricket, it'll be really a situation of law and order. So if the law and order is what it is like in the last 1 week, I don't see how the Indian cricket team can go. But anyway, that's my personal view. On three other points, Barkha, if you allow me. One is the power differential between India and Pakistan mirrors the power differential between China and India. It's very interesting. The differential between India and China is a factor of 5:1. As India moves and leaves Pakistan behind, you have to admit, and I hate saying this, there has to be more of a motivation for Pakistan to do something to make up with India, not vice versa. That is the struggle we are having with China on the border. Why should China bend and drop dead? They are 5 times stronger than India. So this is how nations behave. So regardless of whether you Punjabis love each other, you eat the same food, that's going to make no damn difference, frankly. At the end of the day,
it's a love-hate schizophrenia. It's not so simple as love.
I know. Yes. But anyway, so that's a power differential. Second, answering General Shukla's question, because he did ask what happens if SARC shuts down. Actually, we have made great progress on something called the South Asian Group for Energy. So there is a lot of activity there, and there is a lot of sharing of power between Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal. I think we have decided in India that since SARC and BIMSTEC and the rest of it is not working, we will pick sectors and we will try to cooperate. And I have to say, we are making great progress on energy, connectivity, tourism. So those are the kind of things we will do. Top down has not worked, so let's do something bottom up. Last point, the French have a very beautiful saying, and I'm going to inflict on you, also flaunting my French. François Mitterrand once said, "Il faut donner du temps au temps," which means you give time to time. And I think nothing applies better for this saying than the India-Pak relationship. You simply have to give it time and time and time. There is no point in any of us making haste. It will not happen. So really, you have to give it enormous amounts of time and patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been a very interesting conversation. We leave it there. Dr. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, General Shukla, Munize Jahangir, and we look forward to see what moves, doesn't move, does the needle move at all? And even if it doesn't move between India and Pakistan, there is an SCO forum, and both of our Indian experts certainly believe it's an important forum as global strategy changes and the power balance in the world is shifting. So that's also something to think about. Let's not forget that this is a multilateral forum. It isn't just a forum or a bilateral meeting between two countries. Thank you very much, and see you all soon. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.